With over 20 years of experience working with clients to improve process through enterprise technology solutions, Eric Berridge co-founded Bluewolf to build a new consulting model that is tailor-made to client success and agile, value-based deliverables. He loves working with clients because they are at the intersection of innovation and reality. Eric received his bachelor's in Shakespearean literature from UC Berkeley and his MBA from New York University. Jim Steele joined InsideSales.com after a remarkable 12-year run at Salesforce, where he helped it grow from $25 million to more than $4 billion in revenue. Jim leads InsideSales.com's sales, customer service, implementation, account management, and professional services organizations. He is helping the company expand its global footprint while establishing a culture of excellence in customer satisfaction and success.
It's great to be a part of this today, and I appreciate you inviting me. At Bluewolf, for the past 15 years, as you mentioned, we've been helping organizations of all shapes and sizes to sell and service to their customers. We've primarily done that through the cloud, through a very tight partnership with Salesforce.com. And I think what we've really seen in the last 15 years is a drive to helping sales organizations and service organizations become more productive, get to their customers faster, and drive some business outcomes out of the cloud. But I think what we're seeing today is like something we've never seen before, and it really feels like we're on the cusp of something. I think you identified that when you made the move over to Inside Sales a few months ago, and it's all being driven out of this digital revolution, which I think for most organizations is creating a ton of opportunity, but it's probably also creating a lot of confusion and a lot of questions in terms of what we need to do next and what we need to do to harness all of this data. Because if you look at the global marketplace, IBM tells us that 90% of the data in the world today has been created in the last 2 years. I mean, we see these statistics all over the place now. Forrester said that most companies estimate they're only analyzing 12% of their data. I'd argue that that number is actually much smaller than that. If I look at most of the companies that we work with, particularly Consent, we're creating 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every day. I don't even know what a quintillion is. That seems like a tremendous amount of information that all of a sudden is exploding into the marketplace. Another statistic here, the total amount of data captured and stored doubles every 1.2 years. So the bottom line is, it's massive. And I think executives across every industry are recognizing that the most valuable companies in the world are exceeding data, right? Let's look at some examples. When you look at a company like LinkedIn, this is a company that has turned the world of recruiting and employment upside down. They've changed it forever, specifically because they've figured out how to harness social and data. Another great example is Uber, is completely upending the world of transportation, specifically because they've figured out how to network together consumers and drivers and transportation through a very simple application. Another great example is Twitter, right? Twitter just announced or just launched their live product where you can stream real-time video. Look at the statistics that we just talked about. Those numbers are only going to multiply by extreme factors in the coming 5 years. So data is everywhere, it's massive, and the most valuable companies in the world are exploiting data. And they're doing it either to connect people, or they're doing it to connect things, or they're doing it to connect people to things. The other thing to think about is that the cloud is making this data explosion easy, and it's making it live. Products like Salesforce, products like Inside Sales, products like Workday, all of these cloud applications are actually allowing for the consumption of this data in a way that organizations can move much faster than they could have if they had to put that infrastructure in place themselves. But when we think about data, we have to remind ourselves that it's only valuable if it can be presented and acted upon through simple applications. Because that's the other beauty of things like Uber and LinkedIn. they've figured out how to harness data through a very simple and easy-to-use interface that's mobile, that's live, that's always on. So organizations and enterprises that are moving towards the best-in-class usage of data are not only harnessing this data, but they're also propagating it through simple-to-use applications that users can gravitate to and learn and use as productivity tools in their day-to-day lives. So when we think about data at Bluewolf and when we talk to customers, we really try to put it into 4 buckets. And in today's day and age, to harness this explosion of data, the first thing that we like to talk to customers about is the necessity of live data. The whole batch world that we've been living in for the past 50 years is coming to a close. Data that is live is data that can be acted upon. It's data that you can present to customers in real time. It's data that you can actually use to grow your enterprise. A great example of that is a client of ours, Sonova, which is an energy company, and they have people, thousands of people in the field all day long presenting pricing information to their customers. And that pricing data actually changes on an hourly basis. So to present relevant quotes, to present relevant information to their customers, they have to have live data. And Sonova's gone to great lengths to put a data management system in place that allows that data to be live in front of their customers. So that's the first tenet that we believe is very important in harnessing data for your organization. It must be live. It also has to be clean. The information that your users and your executives rely on a daily basis has to be clean and it has to be easy to use. A great example of that is a customer of ours, GlaxoSmithKline, that has thousands of people in the field calling on physicians and doctors. And these doctors move around a lot. They move between hospitals, between their practices, between clinics. And having the information about their whereabouts and their locations so that product can be shipped to them, so that orders can be placed, and so that visits can be made needs to be completely accurate. So having a data cleanliness strategy and having a data steward strategy in an organization is extremely important. Because with all this data, if it's not clean, it's irrelevant, and it actually causes more confusion for our customers. On top of that, to get clean data, it has to be mastered. Today we're living in an omni-channel world. Data is coming in through the internet, it's coming over the phone, it's coming through social media, it's coming through text, and organizations have to have a master record of their customer, of their product. So the best-in-class organizations today that are leveraging this data and doing the really cool things that we're going to talk about in a minute have taken the time and effort to put a data master plan in place and to put master data management techniques in place so that there's always an upstream record that is the master that feeds the downstream engagement data that organizations rely on in front of their customers. And then lastly, your data has to be complete. With this explosion of data, very rarely do we see customers trying to pick and choose which data they want to capture. Most organizations, because the cost of storage and because the cloud is available, are choosing to capture every single piece of data that they can because they can't determine which nuggets of data are actually going to lead to the predictive insights that will ultimately lead to customer engagement and to increased value for their organizations. So in order to achieve these prescriptive insights that Jim will talk about in a few minutes, it requires organizations to collect and move massive amounts of data in real time. And we see best-in-class organizations doing that. Let's talk for a second about the 4 stages of analytics and how you eventually get to prescriptive. Most organizations today are kind of stuck in what we call the descriptive phase of analytics, which is really a rear-view mirror view of what's happened in the past. And a lot of organizations today can run reports and look at dashboards that tell them, hey, This is how much we sold last quarter or last month. This is how much we've put in the pipeline. This is how many cases we're currently trying to crank through in our customer service organization. And I think most organizations, for the most part, have nailed the descriptive piece of analytics. The next phase is really the diagnostic phase. Why did something happen? Why did we add X amount into our pipeline? Why do we have all of these customer service complaints? And that's the second stage that we see on the analytics maturity scale. I'd say probably about 50% of the organizations that we work with can actually answer the why question. But where this really gets interesting is when you can start to mine all of this data that you've collected that is complete, that's clean, that's live, and you can start to talk about what's going to happen next based upon prior action. And organizations that are moving into the best-in-class stages from an analytics perspective are really now moving into this predictive phase where they can look at why a customer might leave their organization based upon how many calls have been made into the call center over what topics, based upon what products maybe have not been shipped on time, based upon what phone calls haven't been answered. And an organization can grab all of that data, mix it with social data, and start to predict that, hey, these are customers that are unhappy, or these are customers that are ready to buy more, or these are customers that we need to get tighter with. And we're starting to see organizations step up and really take a crack at this predictive world, which is answering the question, what's going to happen next? And then the fourth holy grail portion of this, of our analytics maturity scale, is talking about what to do about it. If we know what happened, if we know why it happened, if we now know what's likely to happen next, what's the next best action that we can put into the hands of a call center agent, that we can put into the hands of a sales rep, that we can put into the hands of a product specialist or an executive? How can we start to prescribe action in our organizations so that we're allocating our resource towards customer satisfaction and customer engagement? And that's what we're going to talk about in a few minutes here, because Inside Sales has some great solutions and they have a great message and a great approach to how Prescriptive works. At the end of the day, why do we care? I always like to remind customers that before we get caught up in trying to capture all of our data, before we worry about master data management and live data, before we worry about what's the next best great cloud-based application that we can deploy, these are all technologies. They're all ripe with opportunity, but they're also all somewhat complex. And we always like to drive the conversation back to what's the business outcome that an organization is looking to achieve. And we believe there are four main economic drivers for business outcomes in an organization. Number one, are you trying to acquire new customers? Are you trying to shorten your sales cycle and really look at how you're growing market share? Or number two, are you looking at how you increase the amount of spend or the amount of engagement that you have with your existing customer base, which would be the expansion quadrant of business outcomes, and that's generally through incremental cross-sell, upsell, pricing changes. Then the third economic driver of a business outcome that we look at before we make a technology decision is around cost reduction. Can we reduce the cost that it takes to acquire and serve customers? Do we have too many sales reps out in the field just taking orders when we could actually create a self-serve channel that would be better for the customer as well as better for allocating that sales resource into an acquisitive mode? And then lastly, customer retention. Retaining customers and reducing customer churn, there's a tremendous opportunity to use predictive and prescriptive analytics to really identify those customers that need attention, that maybe need the next release of your product, that maybe need a more frequent visit from your sales organization or your executives. Using prescriptive and predictive analytics to really look at customer retention is what we're seeing a lot of enterprise organizations drive towards. And again, like I said, at the end of the day, you need a simple, easy-to-use application that can be the conduit for all of this data and that can drive the prescriptive behavior and that can drive the predictive behavior that organizations are looking for. Thanks a lot for having